day, Brutal Planet listeners. This is Eric Peterson in Salt Lake City, and today I'm joined by Nicke Andersson of the Hellacopters. How are you doing today?
Very good. How are you?
Good. Where are you joining us from today?
From Stockholm. Well, a little bit outside of Stockholm.
Oh, okay. How are things there?
It's fairly cold, but still sunny. Well, not
Oh,
anymore since it's 9 p.m. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's a good. It's not spring yet. I'm sorry to say.
Oh, it's
Still
not.
winter.
Okay.
No, the winters here are way too long.
Are they? Okay. Well, I noticed you guys opened back up again, and so now you can be like a proper Swede and stay 20 feet away from people instead of 6 feet.
Exactly. It is kind of how it is.
Because that's what I was always told by my Swedish friends is normally we stay 20 feet apart, but they said during the pandemic we had to stay 6 feet
Yeah, that is.
apart. So
And also,
everything's.
even the further north you get, it's even more so.
Oh, is it okay? So now that things are open back up again, how are things going for you guys?
Well, it's great, but now we have a almost nuclear war going on. So then you have that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah. We go from one pandemic to another, don't we?
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Um, no, that's great. We actually this weekend played with my other band Lucifer in Stockholm and Gothenburg,
Uh
and
huh.
this is the first time we could do that, and that was really cool to be able to do that. Because
I.
before the restrictions, we also played two shows with the Helicopters in December before
Okay.
the Omicron hit really bad again. So,
Yeah.
but now we'll see if it's gonna that part of the world is gonna work. Not
Well,
sure.
before we dive right into the helicopter stuff, how is things going in Lucifer?
Oh, good. Except we didn't do the tour that we were gonna end in Stockholm.
Yeah.
We just did the end of it. So
Yeah.
two shows. But other than that, no, it's great. I mean,
Good.
things good, except we everyone could play a little more live, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest with you, we could all help us all to see a little bit more live.
Yeah.
A lot live shows do wonders for me. So
Yeah, I think they do for a lot of people, and that's I mean, you take it for granted until a pandemic hits you, and then you're like, oh yeah, fuck, maybe
yeah.
I should really go see stuff
Yeah.
when I opportunity, you know.
Yes. So you guys got back together in 2016 at the Sweden Rock Festival, correct?
Yes.
And after breaking up in 2008, I would say.
Yes.
Obviously, you guys things have been going good since then because you are making new music. What did you guys decide? How did you guys decide to get back together?
I think it was because we um, I mean, even like a year after we broke up, we got a few offers like, "Hey, do you guys want to reunite?" And I'm always, "Well, we just broke up. Can we just be broken up?" You know?
Yeah,
And but then time passes and there's water under the bridge. You think differently about some things, and and then the offers kept coming, and then at one point somebody said, well, next year, this was in 2015, somebody said, well, next year is going to be the 20th anniversary of the first album. And then we said, well, maybe that's something we should consider. So then we just said, okay, let's try this one. It was an offer. They had an offer we couldn't really refuse, you
yeah,
know. So that was very good for the wallet, but it was also very important that it wasn't only for that,
yeah,
because then I want to be able to sleep at night too. And it's very important. It was very important for us that whatever we do, it has to be at least as good as it was before we broke up, but preferably better.
yeah.
So that's what we did, and then when we did that show, it felt really good, and it was a pretty amazing feeling to see that. Holy shit! It seems like people have missed us, and that was a very well. It was quite beautiful, actually, and that made us want to keep going.
Yeah. I mean, it helps that it's in front of your home crowd and everybody knows your music and they're like, yes, this is what we've been waiting for.
Yeah, and we didn't really know that, until
Yeah.
you actually do it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's been feeling cool since then.
Good. Good. And now you've got a new album coming out on April 1st, The Eyes of Oblivion. Um, how was making the album in 2022 compared to the last album you made, which was in 2008?
Well, it was quite different because of the way we recorded it,
Yeah.
and it was spread out throughout a long period of time, which I'm never going to repeat again. But and I think the first session we had was 3 years ago, and we're a band that plays three chords, sometimes four, occasionally a fifth chord. So it's not rocket science, right?
Yeah.
But so we had a session 3 years ago, and then maybe it was 3 or 4 months until the next session, and it kept on like that until we were done, and that freaked me out because I get really into something, and then if I can't keep doing it, then my head is going somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that approach was not so good, I think. But the end result, I don't think you can hear that. The good thing was that we could focus on those 2 or 3 songs at a time and have a little breather. It's just that the breather were too long.
Yeah.
If you ask me, so which you are. So that was the main difference, I think. The rest was pretty similar. I mean, I write most of the songs. I show them to the guys. Simple demos, and I play it to them. If they like it, then we have a go at it, and then take things from there.
So back in 2008, though, there wasn't a lot of, recording from your home and then sending it in. Did you guys do any of that on this album?
No, since we didn't have a lockdown during the pandemic.
Okay, so you didn't have to. You could get together still.
No, we could get together because Sweden had a very different approach to this thing than the rest of the world, which we can discuss some other time if that was good or bad.
Yeah.
But that's how it was. So we could actually meet in the rehearsal place and do it together. So we were together in the same room.
Nice, nice.
Which is, of course, a privilege,
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just curious from you personally, being in Lucifer and stuff, have you ever recorded in that way where everybody does a part and sends it in, or are you just still in that mode of going to the studio?
I mean, of course, we haven't played everything live
Yeah,
together, but when we do record something, even though if everyone is not there, it's not like anyone has. Well, that's not entirely true. Since I have a studio, I have made, I guess, all the percussion on the album, for example, that I did alone. There was nobody there.
okay.
So, but that would have happened, pandemic or no pandemic.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the way I want. I just want it that way.
Yeah. Well, the album itself, I mean, it has a very retro sound, and it's your signature sound. Was there any pressure for you guys to change your core sound or update it or anything, or did you just say we're going to do it the way we want to do it?
No, I mean, you said the word retro. In my world, that's kind of like, ooh, because
Yeah, no,
I do get it, but I don't use that word
yeah,
because to me, it's not retro.
yeah, no,
It's,
no. I see what you're saying, but to somebody new listening to you guys, they would say, "Oh, wow, that's got a really '70s sound to it." But to you, that is your
that,
sound.
that is timeless. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
And of course, if you compare us to anything that's on modern rock radio today, of course we're gonna sound like old farts in sound wise, but that's because that's the trend at the moment.
yeah,
Because when I listen to, sometimes I put on the radio in the car just to see what's going on, And I just find it hilarious that these uh, bands from different places in the world, how can they possibly have the same snare drum sound? That's my first reaction, and then I
Yeah,
realized, oh, because they use the same sample. And to me, I'm never gonna understand that.
yeah,
Because something's in fashion. It's like, come on. If you listen to anything from the 70s, it all sounded great, but they never sounded the same. Never.
yeah.
But now, since you trigger everything or you reamp things, it's like it all sounds the same. And so for me, that in that sense, I guess retro is a compliment.
It is. It very much is a compliment.
You know? But and now I lost the question completely.
No,
I got
I was just curious if you guys had any pressure from anybody to change your sound to make it sound more modern, or just to stay who you guys were.
like from management or record
Yeah,
company.
yeah,
No, I think the people who we work with, they know that even if they had an opinion like that, I think they know it's not worth saying.
yeah,
It
yeah,
would not fly. I mean, it's some I can make compromises in life, but not with music.
yeah.
That's
I just think of like today's world where you have like a expert that says, okay guys, we're going to change this sound, we're going to add this in here, and oh, and we're going to fix your hair, and we're going to put it over here, and we're going to put your hair over here, and we got a wardrobe team to come and help you, and you know how that goes.
yeah, and how does that go?
Not very good.
Wasn't there a time? What was around what year was that when Metallica? I don't know. Maybe that was their own decision, but they looked really funny during the load
Yeah,
and.
yeah, load and reload. Yep.
And it's like, I mean, you can say what you want about the look, but it doesn't really look like them, does
Yeah,
it?
exactly,
when
exactly.
when Lars Ulrich walks around with a fur coat and
And James is wearing a Hawaiian shirt and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best look they ever
Yeah.
had.
So how has the reception been from the singles you guys released? From the fans?
I think the people I've talked to, which hasn't been that many, because we haven't been out so much, but it seemed because we did play two shows in December before the restrictions came back on again
Hmm.
in Stockholm and another town a couple of hours away from here, and it seemed like when we played that first single in the set, it seemed like people were seemed to enjoy it. It wasn't like compared to the other ones. So, and that I took that as a good sign,
Yeah,
and it felt really nice to play something new that people didn't dislike. So that
yeah.
was all.
I think the it's not a hard thing for some artists, but artists want to play new music. They don't want to continually play the same old tunes, and so for you to get a good reception, I think has to be something positive, just saying you're going in the right direction.
Well, yeah. I mean, I really hope so because I mean, being a music fan, which is what I am first,
Yeah,
and then later that's a musician, but music fan, that's what I am. And there's been a lot of bands that reunites and they make a new album, but because, like you said, they don't want to play only the old songs, and then they make a new album, and it's very often you're kind of like, yeah, it's okay, you know, that you don't want it to be just okay.
yeah,
You want it to be as good as any other album,
yeah,
and of course, there's only time that could tell that, because now, of course, people have more of a relationship to the old album, so of course they're gonna feel better. It's hard to compete with nostalgia, I guess.
yeah. Well, I mean, the nice thing though is, as I've like talked to Bob Catley from Magnum, and he says, the cool thing is we release albums today, and the kids hear them and they love them, and then they go back and tell their parents, and their parents say, "Oh yeah, I listened to them back in the day," and so
Yeah,
it
back.
becomes it becomes a generational thing. So everybody, you're able to reach these multi generations by still doing what you're doing.
I mean, Yeah, if it works like that, then it's of course that's amazing.
I mean,
You
so
know?
there's a good chance you mean when you guys are playing, you could have kids there and you could have their parents there too.
I think that's what one of the amazing things about playing that first show is that we saw in the audience that hold on, these guys cannot have been around the first time around.
Yeah.
So there's actually not only old farts in the
Yeah.
audience,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that is extremely amazing. So yeah, you could totally have parents and kids there.
So my next question for you is since you've got all this new stuff coming out, what about touring for 2022? I mean, what do you guys have coming up?
um well, if I can just hope for the best.
Yeah.
If pandemic and some that seems to be okay, and now that's not what anyone talks about because the, the fear of the missiles.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So we have that. So but if we take all those things, if we forget about those things for a moment, then yes. But we also know that from when the pandemic started, it feels like, well, it could happen, could also not happen. So
Yeah.
everyone's prepared for the worst kind of thing. You kind of get used to it. But I'm crossing every finger on my hands that there will be. Well, for the summer, I hope there's festivals, but they're still happening in Europe. But then there was also talk about going to the States in August.
Oh, nice.
But I'm not sure if that's going to happen, of course. But also, yeah, but we'll be touring
Good. Good. I
if the
wanted,
world is willing.
yeah, if the world cooperates. So
Yeah.
in our, I guess at this point, to me personally, it's Putin has become the next virus.
Yeah, totally. It's weird because now nobody thinks about the virus anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my last question I wanted to ask you is the music industry has changed for better or for worse over the last 20 years. What have you seen today that you go, I like that a lot better than it was back then?
Oh, it would have been easier if it was the other way
Really?
around. No, I mean, I don't want to be like, a mopey old guy, it was better back then. I mean, of course, there's good things about streaming music
Hmm.
that is really accessible and you can just have something out immediately. That's really good. There's also downsides with that, of course, maybe more than good sides. Uh, I think it's really cool that vinyl is here to stay.
Yeah, yeah,
It just seems like we're good.
yeah, yeah,
The CD that I still don't understand why we print CDs, but there's
yeah,
still a demand in few countries, which I find interesting. But
yeah.
that's good. But I think, yeah, I mean, yeah, now I sound really negative here, but I can only think about. Uh, I think the social media thing is really. It has to be hitting its peak right now. I hope it can't be worse. Because it seems like today the bands have to do everything. Whereas
Yeah.
back there, you actually had a promotional thing from a record company. All they do now is send emails. Can you post this, post that, post?
Yeah. Yeah.
The record company, what are you gonna do?
Exactly.
But it's a lot of what do they call it, social media content. That's what
Yes.
they keep that. And I have no idea what are we gonna do? Film us when we eat breakfast? I don't want to see that.
So the one thing I will say, and I'm curious to get your take on this, is a lot of the musicians that I talk to say that they feel like they have a closer relationship with their fans via social media. I'm curious. I mean, I don't know how much you do on social media, but do you feel that way?
That is, of course, true. And but then sometimes I think maybe it's too close, where
Okay.
that some of the mystery one had, at least when I grew up with music. It's like you
Yeah.
didn't really know, you
Yeah.
know. And then you sat at home looking at the album covers, like speculating, you know. Now everything's out there, so that's both good and bad, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you can do direct connections with the fans. It's like you can just post something and then you can interact.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's just that, yeah, unfortunately, I think about the not so good parts. But of
Yeah.
course, I'm not going to be, you know, totally backwards. You know,
I mean,
but
you and I think, feel the same way because I remember getting an album back in the '80s and just looking it over on the way home before I could ever listen to it, and just studying it, and that doesn't seem to happen these days. It seems like it's a very ADD atmosphere out there where everybody just wants to hear it, hear the hook, and then they're on to the next thing.
yeah, I mean, if you look at these, I've only used Spotify, but it's quite a few of them right now. But you can see if you look at any album of any artist, you can see how much streams there, and it's always the three first songs.
Yeah. Yep.
But then
Yeah.
people move on to the next thing, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas if you bought a whole album back then, of course you listen to the whole thing,
Yeah.
and also many times, you know,
Yeah.
because you also didn't have access to that many records at the same time. So that, of course, that's different, and that's good things about it, and not so good things about it, I guess.
I mean, for me, I miss the days of. I mean, there's still those albums that are in my life that I remember, and I could tell you the A side track listing and the B side track listing.
Yeah,
But the nice thing about today is that I find an artist that I didn't really know about, and I can immediately go back and discover their whole catalog.
that's the good thing.
Yeah,
You know, if somebody says, "Have you heard this song?" and then of course you check out the song, but then you get curious about the rest, and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And
So
then also sometimes it says if you like this, you might want to check this out. And I have discovered things because of that.
yeah, and that's a whole rabbit hole, man. You just like you get on YouTube and it starts showing you these next video to
Yeah,
watch, and you next thing you know, you're like 4 days later going, up. Did I sleep?
yeah, and you're all of a sudden you're an expert in psychedelic rock.
Exactly, exactly,
And that, I
exactly,
mean, that is cool. But at the same time, back in the day, you really had to work for the knowledge,
exactly, exactly.
which meant that if you did, you're a true nut.
Yeah,
And maybe, well, it's good and bad, I guess.
yeah, and I think you and I both can say we were, in some senses, true nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, sometimes you think to yourself, why do I know the bass player in that half known band? Why do I know his name? You know,
Yeah,
can I take that out of here? You know,
yeah,
it's a lot of um, not so important knowledge.
exactly. I will say, and I'm curious to get your take on this, is today it seems like there's a lot more artist collaboration. I've seen it in a lot of Swedish bands. I'll have an artist that collaborates with another artist on a song, and I love that because it sometimes it introduces me to a new artist. How do you feel about that?
That is a really good thing about the technology today, I
Yeah,
think. That even if you don't have a studio, you can actually record, for example, vocals at home pretty decent.
yeah,
That can actually be used, which means that you happen to, get you get to know someone, like someone from down south in Sweden maybe gets to know someone in Oregon,
uh huh,
and, and they become friends on social media, and then like, hey, do you want to play on my album? Sure, I'll send it next week, instead of flying over here or there, and
yeah,
that couldn't happen back then unless you had tons of money. And
exactly.
now you can do it for practically nothing, and that's really cool, I think.
So my prime example of that is another Swedish artist, Liv Sin. Um, she put out her first their first band solo album. They put out a song it was a cover of Fight song called Immortal Sin, and they had Yerky from the 69 Eyes on there. And I'd heard of Yerky, but I'd never heard, or I've heard of the 69 Eyes, but I never heard of him, who he was. And I heard
Oh,
that song and I went, that is an amazing song. So it introduced me to him, but then reintroduced me back into the 69 Eyes.
no, see, yeah, but these things are really cool, I think. So
Yeah.
that I totally agree with that. So there's some good pros, not only cons.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Of course.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing your guys' album completely come out so everybody can enjoy it like I have. And it's the Eyes of Oblivion, and it comes out on April 1st. I appreciate your time, Nick, and
Well, thank you so
I,
much. It was nice talking to you.
I look forward to hopefully seeing you on tour.
Yes, it has to happen.
Yes. So, well, thank you for your time, and we will catch up soon.
All right.